Hannah, is that you?
I know you've seen men who love deeply, men who chase beauty, and men who never learn when to stop. But have you ever heard of Okilo, the man who married 17 wives and still found one who changed everything? In a peaceful African village where love cost nothing, Okilo met Hannah, a woman so beautiful the sun seemed to rise for her alone. But beauty can hide secrets. Soon, miracles and mysteries began to surround her. A car from nowhere, food that never finished, and a hand that stretched across rooms. Who was Hannah? Woman or spirit? Among the men in this village was Okilo, a man known far and wide. His life had not always been easy. He had suffered many hardships before fortune smiled upon him. But over the years he became known for something unique. Every year, at the beginning of the year, he married a new wife. By this year, he had 17 wives. Each of them was special in her own way, and his compound was full of laughter, children, and activity. But this year, something extraordinary happened. Okilo met the woman who would become his 18th wife, and she would change his life forever. Her name was Hannah, and she was unlike any woman Okilo, or anyone in the entire region, had ever seen. Hannah's beauty was not just physical. It was the kind of beauty that made the air around her feel lighter. Her skin glowed like early morning sunshine. Her hair flowed down her back like a river, and her smile seemed to brighten the entire village. Old men paused to admire her when she walked by. Young boys stopped playing just to catch a glimpse of her. Some even whispered that she was not an ordinary girl but a gift from the spirits. Okilo first saw Hannah near the big mango tree at the edge of the village. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, and there she stood, almost glowing in the golden light. At that very moment, Okilo felt his heart beat faster. He knew instantly that he wanted her to be his wife. He approached her, greeted her politely, and they began to talk. Their conversation flowed naturally, as though they had known each other for years. Hannah's voice was soft, yet powerful, and her words were full of wisdom. "Hannah," Okilo said after a while, "I want you to be my wife. I want you to come to my home, cook for me, laugh with me, and stay by my side all my days." Hannah smiled gently. Her smile was so bright that even the birds in the tree above them seemed to pause their singing just to watch her. "If that is truly your heart's desire," she replied, "then let us seal it with a gift." Okilo, being a man who always came prepared, had brought her presents. He handed her a beautiful new dress, a shining necklace, and a fancy handbag from the market. Hannah accepted them happily. Then she said, "Now let me give you something in return." Before Okilo could ask what she meant, a miracle occurred. Right before his eyes, a shining car appeared from nowhere. It had not been there a moment earlier, and no one had driven it to that place. The car was spotless, its body gleaming as though it had just come out of a showroom. Okilo stepped back in shock. Greater than, "What is this? Where did this come from?" Hannah simply smiled and said, "Here is your gift, my dear." Okilo could hardly believe what was happening, but his heart was full of joy. He accepted the gift and thanked her. At that moment, he knew that marrying Hannah would bring wonders he could never have imagined. When the day of picking the bride arrived, Okilo and his friends decided to use the miraculous car to travel to Hannah's home. The whole village came to see them off, marveling at the mysterious vehicle. "Truly Okilo is blessed," the elders said. "No man has ever received such a gift from a woman," others whispered. They started their journey early in the morning, believing it would take about an hour. But the journey turned out to be unlike any journey they had ever taken. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, yet they never felt tired. They passed through lush forests, where the trees looked greener than usual. They crossed streams where the water sparkled like silver. At one point, they drove through a wide field full of golden butterflies that danced around the car as if escorting them. Though the road was dusty, the car remained perfectly clean, shining as though someone was washing it with invisible hands. At last, they reached Hannah's home late in the evening. Strangely, none of them felt hungry or exhausted. It was as if an unseen hand had kept them fresh and strong all day. When Hannah stepped out of the house, everyone gasped. She was dressed in a beautiful outfit that made her look like a queen. She smiled warmly, and the entire place seemed to light up. The villagers gathered for the wedding ceremony. They cooked plenty of food: sweet potatoes, cassava, roasted meat, bananas, millet bread, and honey. Everyone was invited, and people ate until they were satisfied. But just when everyone thought the day was normal, another miracle occurred inside the marriage tent. As soon as Okilo and Hannah sat down together, the tent filled with a sweet, heavenly fragrance. It was not the smell of flowers or food. It was something far more mysterious. The air felt lighter, and a strange peace settled over everyone inside. "Greater than, this is a blessed marriage," the old women whispered. "The ancestors are smiling on them." Suddenly, the drummers began to beat their drums with new energy, and the dancers moved as though they were being guided by unseen spirits. The celebration grew louder, happier, and more joyful. When it was time to go back home, Okilo and his new bride entered the car. The moment they started the engine, the car began to glow with a golden light, turning the night into day. They didn't even need the headlights. The road became smooth, as if cleared just for them. Wild animals that usually roamed the night stood by the roadside, watching silently as the glowing car passed. Some villagers who saw them from afar said, "It looked like a moving star, crossing the earth." When they reached Okilo's compound, something even more mysterious happened. The car parked itself without anyone touching the wheel. As soon as everyone stepped out, the car slowly faded away until there was nothing left but the sound of crickets in the night. Some said it had gone back to wherever it had come from, perhaps heaven itself. Others believed it had transformed into an invisible blessing that would guard Okilo's home forever. That night, Okilo sat quietly outside, staring at the moon. His heart was full of questions. Who really is Hannah? Why do miracles follow her wherever she goes? Inside the house, Hannah greeted the other wives kindly, smiling at each one of them. Instead of jealousy, they felt a strange respect for her. There was something about her presence that made everyone calm and peaceful. Okilo could not sleep that night. He lay awake thinking about the car, the fragrance in the tent, and the glowing road. Greater than, maybe it was all a vision, he said to himself. But if it was a vision, why does my heart feel so sure that it was real? The story of their marriage spread quickly across the entire region. People traveled from far away just to catch a glimpse of Hannah, the woman who brought miracles wherever she went. Some came hoping to receive blessings, while others simply wanted to sit near her and feel the peace she carried. But little did Okilo know, this was just the beginning. The most astonishing miracle was yet to come, something that would make him question everything he thought he knew. Now Hannah was officially married, and from the first night she stepped into Okilo's compound, miraculous things never stopped happening. At first everyone thought it was just luck. The harvest was suddenly better that year, rain came at the right time, and even the sick cows in Okilo's kraal became healthy overnight. The villagers whispered among themselves, saying, "Ever since Hannah came, Okilo's home has been favored. This woman is surely not an ordinary wife." But what surprised Okilo the most were the strange things Hannah could do inside the house. Fetching water was one of the most time-consuming tasks in the village. The nearest water source was almost an hour's walk away, but whenever Hannah was asked to fetch water, she would be back in a single minute, carrying a full pot of the cleanest water. At first, Okilo thought maybe she had found a shortcut, but when he asked her, Hannah would only smile and say, "Do not worry, my husband. I will always make sure you have enough water." One day, Okilo was lying on the bed, thirsty. Before he could even call out for water, Hannah stretched her hand towards the next room. To his shock, a cup of water appeared in her hand instantly, as if an invisible hand had passed it to her. She gave it to him calmly, without even standing up from the bed. Okilo took the cup and drank, but his heart began to beat faster. What kind of power does this woman have? He wondered. The more these things happened, the more Okilo felt both lucky and fearful. He had never seen anything like it before. One afternoon, Okilo left Hannah resting in the bedroom, and he found her sitting in the living room smiling at him. "But I just left you in the bedroom," he exclaimed. "How did you get here before me?" "I didn't even hear you walk." Hannah only smiled again and said softly, "A good wife is always where her husband needs her." But Okilo was now worried. Were there two Hannahs? Or could she be in two places at the same time? The other wives in the compound also noticed strange things. They said that when Hannah cooked, the food never got finished, no matter how many people came to eat. They could eat and eat, but the pot always seemed full. Tea night, Okilo would find himself strangely at peace whenever he slept next to Hannah. He would wake up feeling strong and full of energy. But on nights when he chose to sleep with the other wives, he would wake up tired, confused, and sometimes with nightmares. Greater than what went wrong with me? Okilo asked himself. Why do I only feel like a real man when I sleep beside Hannah? What kind of woman is she? Days turned into weeks, and Okilo's curiosity turned into fear. One evening, something happened that changed everything. The moon was bright, and Okilo was returning from a late meeting with the elders. As he approached his house, he noticed something strange on the ground. A long shadow stretching from the bedroom window all the way to the sitting room door. At first, he thought it was a snake. His heart began to beat fast. He took a step closer, holding his spear tightly, ready to strike. But as he looked again, he realized it was not a snake. It was a hand. Yes, a hand. Hannah's hand, stretching unnaturally long from the bedroom to the sitting room, holding a cup of water. Okilo froze on the spot. He could not believe what he was seeing. His legs trembled and his breath became heavy. Greater than, could my wife be a spirit? Or a messenger from another world? He whispered to himself. The hand slowly pulled back into the bedroom, as though nothing had happened. When Okilo finally gathered courage to enter the house, Hannah was sitting calmly on the bed, smiling as if she had been waiting for him all along. "Welcome home, my husband," she said. But Okilo could not answer immediately. His mind was full of questions. He sat down, staring at her silently. That night he could not sleep. He kept asking himself, if it was you, what would you do? Would you run away and leave such a woman? Or would you stay because she brings blessings? Would you tell the elders? Or would you keep it a secret to protect her? The next morning, Okilo called a private meeting with his close friends and 2 village elders. He narrated everything he had seen. The car that came from nowhere, the water-fetching miracles, the food that never finished, and now the stretching hand. The elders were silent for a while before speaking. "Okilo," one of them said, "in the old days, our parents would choose wives for us. They would study the family of the girl, ask about their history, and make sure she was from a home of good values. Nowadays, young men marry only for beauty. That is why you are shocked by what you see." Another elder nodded and said, "Maybe this woman is not evil. Maybe she was sent to bless you. But as a man, you must study the person you marry before bringing them into your home." Okilo thought deeply about these words. He began to remember how, in the past, his own parents had always guided him when marrying his first few wives. But in later years, he had started choosing wives on his own, sometimes only because they were beautiful, or because his heart desired them. He sighed heavily. If only our African culture of parents helping their sons choose good wives could come back, he said. Maybe things would be easier for young men today. Maybe we would not fall into situations we do not understand. Okilo decided to be patient with Hannah. He would continue observing her carefully. That evening, he gathered all his wives and children and spoke to them. "My children, my wives," he said, "marriage is not just about beauty or desire. You must study the person you want to marry. You must ask questions. Parents must train their children about marriage when they are still young so that they do not make mistakes. A man must not admire too many women. If you can, marry one wife and stay faithful to her." His words became a lesson to everyone in the compound. The wives nodded quietly and the children listened carefully. Okilo then turned to Hannah. "My dear," he said softly, "whatever power you carry, use it to bless this home, not to frighten us." Hannah smiled and said only one thing. "As long as you love me, this house will never lack anything." "Ah, Hannah," he sighed, "if you were food, I would eat you every day." Those words escaped his mouth unconsciously, and one of his wives overheard. She turned and said, "My husband, are you missing her again?" Okilo said nothing. He only looked into the distance, his heart torn between fear and love. Days passed, then weeks. But the memory of Hannah refused to fade. One morning, Okilo decided he would go to Hannah's home village to talk to her, maybe to convince her to return and cook for him again. Deep down, he also wanted to see her smile, to touch her hand once more, and to feel that mysterious warmth she brought into his life. He woke early, dressed smartly, and set off on foot. He told no one where he was going, not even his closest friend. The road was long, winding through thick bushes and quiet paths that only hunters used. Birds sang, the wind whispered, and occasionally, he felt like someone was walking behind him. As he reached the village where Hannah had said she was from, something strange began to happen. He could not remember her exact home. The houses all looked the same, the paths all twisted and turned like a maze. He stopped several people along the way. "Excuse me," he said. "Do you know where Hannah lives?" A beautiful girl, tall, brown-skinned, with a soft voice. The villagers looked confused. "Hannah?" they repeated. "There is no one called Hannah in this village." Okilo frowned. "Are you sure?" Maybe she moved away recently. But everyone shook their heads. "We have never heard that name here." He walked on, confused, asking one house after another. No one knew her. The more he asked, the more he began to feel a cold chill crawl down his spine. Could it be possible that she lied about where she came from? Just as he was about to give up, an old man sitting under a mango tree called out, "Young man, whom are you looking for?" Okilo walked closer. "I am looking for a woman called Hannah. She was my wife." The old man stared at him for a long time, then asked quietly, "Did you say Hannah?" "Yes," Okilo replied eagerly. The old man shook his head slowly and said, "We do not have any woman here by that name. But we have something called Hannah in this village, and it is not a woman. It is a snake owned by a certain witch man who died many years ago." Okilo's heart skipped a beat. "A snake?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," the man continued. "That snake is said to have great powers. The witch man named it Hannah. They say it can take any form. It can become a tree, a cow, a child, even a handsome man." Okilo's lips quivered. "How about a beautiful girl?" The old man looked up sharply. "Yes, it can." Okilo froze. The world around him seemed to stop. The birds went silent. The wind died down. He stared at the old man, unable to move. For the first time, he began to wonder if Hannah, his beautiful wife, had been human at all. His mind flashed back to the miracles. The car from nowhere, the spotless journey, the stretching hand, the mysterious water that appeared instantly in her cup. He felt dizzy. He tried to speak. but no words came. Suddenly he heard something behind him, a soft, familiar voice, gentle and sweet, calling his name. Okilo! He turned sharply. There was no one. The old man looked at him and asked, "Did you hear that?" Okilo nodded slowly. His mouth went dry. That was her voice, he whispered. He began to walk away quickly, his heart pounding. The path looked darker now. The trees seemed to move, their shadows forming shapes. He walked faster, almost running, but the voice followed him. "Okilo, why did you leave me?" He stopped and looked around again. Nothing, only silence. Then, as he took another step, he saw something. A shadow ahead of him, shaped like a woman. She stood still, her long hair waving even though there was no wind. He called out, "Hannah?" The figure didn't move. He blinked once, and she was gone. His knees went weak. He fell to the ground, his hands trembling. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to move. He whispered a short prayer. "God, protect me. If this is evil, may you drive it away." He rose slowly and began to walk back toward his village. But before he could go far, he saw something lying on the path. A necklace. The very same one he had given Hannah when they first met. He picked it up carefully. It was cold. Colder than ice. Suddenly, the same soft voice whispered close to his ear. "I kept it for you, my love." He screamed and threw the necklace away, then ran as fast as he could. The villagers who saw him said he looked like a man chased by ghosts. When he reached his home, his other wives surrounded him, asking what had happened. But Okilo couldn't speak. He just sat down quietly, his eyes empty, his hands shaking. That night, as he lay on his bed, he heard the same voice again, this time from the roof of his house, whispering his name over and over. He covered his head with a blanket, praying it would stop, but the whisper turned into laughter, soft mocking, familiar. And as dawn approached, a strange wind blew through his compound, scattering everything. The goats cried, the dogs barked wildly, and the other wives ran into their rooms screaming. Okilo knew then that his story with Hannah was not over. Something had followed him back from that village, something that still called his name at night. "Ah, these old village men," Okilo said to himself as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. "They like telling stories to scare visitors." He looked back at the old man and smiled faintly. "Old father," he said, "maybe you're confusing names. The Hannah I married cooks, laughs, and even argues like any normal woman. How can a snake do all that?" The old man only smiled, showing his toothless gums. "My son," he said, "sometimes love can make you blind. You are seeing a woman, but what if the woman you love is not really what she looks like?" Okilo laughed nervously. "You mean to say I married a reptile?" The old man nodded slowly. "You might have married a miracle, or a curse." Okilo shook his head and walked away. "These people want to scare me so that I forget about my beautiful Hannah," he muttered. "Maybe the old man wants to marry her himself." He decided to go to another home within the same village to confirm. He met a group of women pounding millet and asked politely, "Excuse me, do you know a girl called Hannah who lives here?" The women looked at one another in surprise. One whispered, "He's asking about the snake again." Another said loudly, "You mean Hannah the snake of the witch man?" Okilo's face turned pale. "Are you saying the same thing as the old man?" "Yes," the woman replied. "If you want, we can show you the witch man's home. But be careful. If he doesn't like you, he can turn you into a chicken." Okilo tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. Turn me into what?" "A chicken," another woman repeated seriously. "Or a goat, depending on his mood." The others laughed, and one joked, "If he turns you into a goat, make sure you run fast before he makes soup." Okilo chuckled nervously. "These women," he said, pretending not to be afraid. "But all right, show me this witch man's home." They gave him directions. The road was narrow and shadowed by tall trees. Strange noises came from the bushes, whistling sounds, whispers, and the rustle of dry leaves even when there was no wind. Finally, he reached a small compound surrounded by charms, skulls of animals, and bottles filled with colored liquids. The air smelled of herbs and firewood. At the entrance, an old man with sharp eyes and a long beard sat on a stool, stirring something in a clay pot. "Welcome, traveler," the witch man said without looking up. "I knew you were coming." Okilo stopped, startled. "You knew?" "Yes," the witch man said calmly. "You have walked a long way looking for Hannah." Okilo swallowed hard. "Yes, that's true." The witch man motioned for him to sit on a carved stool. "Before you speak," he said, "drink this water." Okilo hesitated. Maybe I'm not thirsty." The old man laughed deeply. "You fear me?" Okilo forced a smile. No, not at all. But I came to ask something important." The witch man looked at him closely, then asked, "Who is Hannah?" Okilo smiled softly. "She's my wife." The witch man's face darkened. "Do you mean my snake?" Okilo blinked in shock. "What?" The witch man leaned closer. "My snake, Hannah. She lives here in my shrine." No, Okilo exclaimed, waving his hands. "I'm talking about a woman. A real woman. Beautiful, kind, with soft hair and a sweet voice. I even married her." The witch man frowned. "Then you mean to tell me," he said slowly, "that you married my snake in human form?" Okilo stammered. "No, I mean, maybe, I don't know." Before he could say another word, a low hissing sound filled the air. From behind the shrine curtain, a long, dark snake slithered out slowly. Its eyes shone like fire, and its scales glimmered as it moved. Okilo jumped up, trembling. "Ah, what is this?" The witch man smiled faintly. "That's Hannah." Okilo shook his head violently. "No, that's not my Hannah. My Hannah is a woman, not a snake." The witch man chuckled, his voice deep and calm. "She can be both." Okilo tried to run, but his legs froze. His body refused to move. "I meant Hannah, my wife," he shouted. Suddenly, the snake raised its head, and before his eyes it began to change. Its body twisted, shimmered, and turned into the form of a woman, tall, beautiful, smiling, but it wasn't exactly Hannah. Okilo's voice quivered. "No, that's not her. My wife had a scar on her left hand." The witch man laughed loudly. "Ah! You're very specific. So you remember even the scar?" "Yes," Okilo said. "Bring me my wife, the real Hannah." The witch man clapped his hands twice. The fire in the pot flickered and went blue. Then another figure began to form, slowly, gently. And when Okilo saw her face, he gasped. It was her. "Hannah!" he cried. "That's her." The witch man nodded slowly. "So, you mean all along you married my Hannah? You, my son, have been my son-in-law?" Okilo didn't know whether to laugh or collapse. He sat down, shaking his head. "Father-in-law indeed," he muttered. The witch man smiled slyly. "You're brave, my son." Few men survive after living with Hannah, but you, he paused and chuckled. "You even won her back." Okilo cleared his throat nervously. "Yes, I love her. She makes good food. And, she makes my nights peaceful." The witch man roared with laughter. "Peaceful? My son, wait until she turns into a snake again in your bed." Okilo jumped. "Hey, don't say that. You're joking, right?" The old man laughed harder. "Maybe I'm joking, maybe not. But don't worry. I will send her to you tomorrow. Take good care of her this time." Okilo nodded quickly. "Thank you, my father-in-law." The witch man grinned. "And remember, If she stretches her hand again from the bedroom to the sitting room, just greet it politely. Don't scream like last time. Okilo smiled awkwardly. Heh heh, I'll try. Before leaving, the witch man handed him a small charm wrapped in banana leaves. Keep this in your pocket. It will protect you if Hannah ever becomes too... Long Okilo didn't understand what that meant, but he accepted the charm gratefully. He thanked the witch man and left the compound quickly, eager to return home. That night, as Okilo walked back through the forest, he kept thinking about what had happened. Part of him was relieved that he had found Hannah's father, but another part of him was scared. What if it's true? He whispered to himself. What if I really married a snake? He laughed nervously, shaking his head. No. Hannah is human. Maybe she just has spiritual powers. He reached home late and went straight to bed. His wives asked where he had gone, but he only said, I went to bring peace to my home. The next morning, as the sun rose, a soft knock came at the door. When he opened, there she was, standing, smiling, glowing in her beauty. Hannah. She carried a basket of fruits and said sweetly, I told you I'd come back, my love. Okilo couldn't speak. He just smiled and let her in. That night, things seemed normal again. Laughter, songs, and food. But as they lay in bed, Okilo remembered the witch man's warning. At midnight, he felt something move across the room. He opened his eyes and froze. There it was again. A long, dark arm stretching from the bedroom toward the sitting room, holding a cup. He gasped quietly. Oh no, not again. Then suddenly he remembered the witch man's words. If she stretches her hand again, greet it politely. So Okilo cleared his throat and whispered, Good evening, hand. The hand paused, waved slightly, and then disappeared. Okilo laughed nervously to himself. Maybe greeting it works from outside. Villagers who saw light in his house began gossiping. That man brought back the snake wife again, one said. Another replied, I told you love can make a man blind. A third added jokingly, If she cooks, I don't care. Let her come and stretch her hand here, too. The villagers laughed, but none dared visit Okilo's home that night. Inside, Okilo sat silently, looking at Hannah sleeping peacefully beside him. Her beauty was still beyond explanation. But in his heart, he knew one thing. This marriage was no longer ordinary. Whatever Hannah was, woman or spirit, he had accepted her. But deep down, he wondered, was the witch man really telling the truth? Or was there more that he had not said? Okilo now knew that love without wisdom is like a fire. It warms you for a moment, but can burn you forever. He realized that God must lead a man's decisions, whether it is in marriage, business, or friendship. If not, the wrong choice can bring endless pain. He spoke softly to himself, as if speaking to every young man and woman who would one day hear his story. Do not be driven by beauty or excitement. Pray first. Ask God to guide you. When you rush into things without understanding, you might end up welcoming a snake into your home thinking it's a flower. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. Had I waited? Had I sought wisdom, maybe things would be different. The story of Okilo and Hannah was not just about love. It was a reminder that in life, appearances deceive. What looks good on the outside may hide danger within. Just as in business, a deal that looks sweet at first can later bring tears if one doesn't seek God's direction. So, to everyone listening, before you choose, before you sign, before you marry, pray. Ask God to walk before you. For when God leads the way, even through the darkest path, you will never lose your direction. Okilo himself knew that this was not just a story about him and Hannah. It was a warning and a lesson for every man who was thinking about marriage. He said to himself, a man must study someone carefully before bringing them into his home. Marriage is not something to rush into because of excitement or beauty. He began to reflect deeply. Hannah was indeed beautiful, but she came with mysteries that frightened him. If he had taken more time to study her before marriage, perhaps he would have been more prepared for the strange miracles happening around him. Many young men marry quickly without knowing the true character of the person they are marrying. Some only look at the outward beauty and forget that a bad character can destroy a peaceful home. Okilo thought of other men in the village who had divorced or fought with their wives because they had not taken time to know each other well. He imagined a young man marrying a lazy wife who refused to cook or work, or a young girl marrying a man who drinks too much and beats her. All this can be avoided if people take time to ask questions and learn who they are marrying. Okilo also began to think about how marriage was done in the old days. Parents would be involved in choosing a good wife for their sons or a good husband for their daughters. They would investigate the family's history, make sure they were hardworking and peaceful, and ensure that their children were marrying into a good home. Nowadays, young people marry secretly or in a hurry, and many later regret their decisions. If parents were involved, they could see things their children do not see because they have more wisdom and experience. He wished that culture could return, because a marriage that begins with the blessing of parents often receives the blessing of God and the ancestors. Families also stand together when problems come. As Okilo sat quietly, he prayed that other young men would not rush into marriage blindly. He wanted them to learn from his experience and listen to their parents' guidance. The story of Okilo and Hannah was far from over. The miracles in the house would soon grow stronger, and the entire village was about to witness something that would shake them all. Thank you for watching this story of Okilo and Hannah. Wait for part 2 of the story. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment below, and tell us, what do you think Okilo should have done after seeing Hannah's powers?